At first light, the savanna awakens in a haze of gold and mist. Long shadows stretch across grass fragrant with dew, and a gentle breeze stirs the leaves of acacia trees. Through this shimmering air emerges a figure of quiet power, a solitary elephant, moving with deliberation and grace. Her massive form glides across the plain, each footfall muted by the soft earth. She stops at the bank of a slow river, breath visible in the cool air, and with a measured inhalation lifts her trunk, sensing the water's presence. Then, with the confident leadership of many lifetimes, she turns and calls to her family. One by one they appear. Calves wobbling on spindly legs, younger females padding close, and older bulls gathering behind. Together they prepare to cross, moving into the silver mirror surface of dawn, rippling the reflection of sky and savanna, a moment of pure, wild harmony. This is not just a scene of nature's grandeur. It is an entry into the world of the elephant, the largest land animal on Earth, a creature whose very existence echoes across continents, cultures, and centuries. From the mighty African savannas to the lush forests of Asia, elephants have captivated human imagination as symbols of strength, memory, wisdom, and connection. They carry not just physical mass, but meaning, temples, tales, and traditions built around their presence. Scientific studies now confirm what folklore long intuited. Elephants display intelligence, emotion, and social bonds of rare depth. In inviting you into this world, we begin a journey, one that stretches from the distant past of evolution and adaptation through the rhythms of feeding, movement, and family life into the landscapes of conflict, resilience, and hope that lie ahead. We will explore how elephants emerged amidst changing climates, how their bodies and minds became adapted to survive in vast wilderness. We'll step inside the herds, witness the soft moments of a calf at play, the thunder of hooves and tusks when danger looms, and the silent sorrow when lives are lost. We will examine how these giants engineer ecosystems, shaping forests and grasslands, and how, in turn, the modern world challenges them, asking what the future holds for these titans of the wild. In this opening scene, the mood is set, calm, reflective, full of awe, and deeply alive. There are no rushing panics, no gimmicks, only the slow unfolding of nature's vast canvas, where every ripple in the water, every flick of an ear, every breath through that long trunk carries meaning. From here we step with the herd into the heart of time, beginning with their origins, their ancient story of survival and adaptation, then following them into the present and beyond. You may sense the hush of wings overhead, faint bird calls, the distant murmur of other wild creatures. The elephants move on, guided by instinct and memory, into the rising sun. And with them, you enter a world where wilderness still matters, where every detail of life is tuned to survival and connection, and where the gentle giant of the wild invites you to listen, watch, and feel. The great herd crosses the riverbed, mist rises from the water, the first rays of sun gild the horizon, and ahead strides the matriarch, her massive ears flapping slowly, trunk swaying like a banner in the wind. This scene, full of life and movement, is shaped by a story written across millions of years. Written in bone, landscape, and lineage. What we see now in the grand form of the elephant is the result of an ancient journey, from small, semi-aquatic ancestors to the towering, wise creatures that roam plains and forests today. Our story begins more than 50 million years ago. The early members of the order Proboscidea, the group that would eventually give rise to modern elephants, were modest in size. Some, like Phosphotherium, weighed little more than a large dog, foraging in lush, swampy forests of an earth free of polar ice sheets. One such creature, Moetherium, found in ancient wetlands of what is now Egypt, measured barely 1 meter at the shoulder and likely lived a semi-aquatic life, using a stout body and powerful limbs to wade through reeds and shallow water. Its skull bore only suggestions of a protruding nose, an ancestor of the long trunk that would become the elephant's signature. Over the epochs, climate and landscape changed. Forests gave way to grasslands, rivers shifted their courses, and creatures had to adapt or vanish. From the Oligocene onward, more advanced proboscideans emerged. Genera like Paleomastodon and Phyomia in Africa showed key innovations, a more retracted nasal opening indicating the beginnings of a trunk, tusks in both upper and lower jaws, and larger, more grinding suitable teeth. Fossil evidence tells us that the development of the trunk, the structure of tusks, and the adaptation of molars for grinding vegetation were among the major turning points in the evolutionary story of elephants. By the Miocene epoch, about 20 million years ago, proboscideans had spread far beyond Africa, reaching Eurasia, North America, and even South America. Among them were the enormous beasts we know today only as fossils, the mighty mammoths, woolly and otherwise, and the mastodons, with their distinct tusks and heavily built bodies. Though they resembled modern elephants in many ways, they formed separate branches in the tree of life. Genetic and morphological studies show that mastodons diverged from the ancestors of today's elephants some 25 million years ago. As these ancient relatives adapted to cold tundras or dense forests, the direct lineage that led to our living elephants was honing its own suite of advantages, innovations that would secure their survival through changing worlds. Chief among these was the evolution of the trunk. Once a short, muscular extension of the nose, it gradually lengthened and grew more flexible. Over millions of years, it became one of the most extraordinary tools in the animal kingdom, capable of uprooting trees, plucking a single blade of grass, caressing a calf, or trumpeting a call across the plains. The tusks, too, transformed. What began as elongated teeth became versatile instruments of both utility and expression. Elephants used them to dig for water, strip bark from trees, move obstacles, and display strength in contests of dominance. Their immense size, another of nature's great achievements, provided protection from predators and resilience in drought. It gave them stamina for long migrations, the capacity to reshape the land they walked upon, and the longevity to pass knowledge across generations. Yet perhaps their most remarkable inheritance was invisible, the vast and intricate intelligence that grew within their brains. This social awareness and emotional depth became their greatest evolutionary advantage, binding herds together through memory, empathy, and communication. Fossil excavations tell these tales in the language of bone and sediment. In the Fayum Depression of Egypt, scientists unearthed ancient skulls with tusks in both upper and lower jaws, a feature seen in genera such as Phyomia and Paleomastodon. In far colder regions, the remains of mammoths tell of creatures blanketed in fur, equipped with thick layers of fat and elegantly curved tusks used to sweep snow aside as they foraged beneath the ice. Together, these discoveries reveal a lineage that did more than survive. It transformed itself through every challenge the Earth presented, adapting to swamps, forests, deserts, and ice alike. From that immense evolutionary arc arise the three living species of today: the African savanna elephant, the African forest elephant, and the Asian elephant. Each tells a slightly different story of adaptation. The savanna elephant, the largest of all, evolved great ears to dissipate heat and tusks suited to open grasslands. The forest elephant, smaller and more compact, perfected a quieter existence beneath dense canopies, feeding on fruits and browsing in shadowed understories. The Asian elephant, with its domed head and smaller ears, adapted to a mosaic of jungles and grasslands across South and Southeast Asia. Though divided by geography, all share the same ancient blueprint, the same slow heartbeat of evolution that shaped their ancestors. And what does this immense history whisper to us now? It speaks of endurance and of memory. Across epochs of drought and flood, of ice and fire, elephants have carried within them the strength to adapt. The landscapes changed around them, yet they learned and remembered, their wisdom preserved not in stone but in living minds. Today, as their world shifts again, under the weight of human expansion and climate transformation, their story reminds us that survival is not about strength alone, but about intelligence, cooperation, and the power to adapt. From here, as dawn lifts above the grasslands, the herd moves onward toward the landscapes of the present, their habitats of river, forest, and plain, where ancient instincts still shape modern lives. The landscape of today's elephants carries the echoes of that ancient past. From the deserts of Namibia to the rainforests of Borneo, the lineage that once roamed alongside mammoths and mastodons now moves through a mosaic of living worlds, each shaping and being shaped by these giants in turn. Where the land opens into vast plains, elephants become part of the horizon itself. In the African savannas, their silhouettes drift between acacia trees and tall yellow grasses that roll endlessly toward the sky. The heat rises in waves, and the air hums with life. Here, the savanna elephant reigns, the largest living land mammal, adapted to extremes of sun and scarcity. Its wide ears act as cooling sails, its tusks tools for carving into bark and earth, and its vast memory guides the herd from one water source to the next, year after year through drought and flood alike. Far to the west, in the shadow jungles of Central Africa, the world closes in. The air grows heavy and damp, and sunlight barely reaches the forest floor. It is here that the forest elephant, smaller and quieter, moves like a shadow through green darkness. Its tusks are straighter and thinner, ideal for slipping between trees and stripping fruit from vines. Scientists studying their paths have found they create natural clearings, known as bays, where light returns and countless other animals gather. In these secret gardens of the forest, elephants become gardeners of the wild, shaping the balance of life in ways few creatures can. Across Asia, the story takes another form. The Asian elephant, with its domed head and smaller ears, navigates landscapes woven with both wilderness and humanity. In India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and beyond, they wander between rice fields and forests, through mist-covered hills and ancient river valleys. Generations of elephants have walked these routes for centuries, their movement intertwined with human culture and history. In places like Kerala, villagers still pause their work to let a herd pass, an unspoken pact between past and present, between civilization and the wild that still breathes at its edge. These environments are not mere backdrops, they are forces that shape the elephant's behavior and survival. In open grasslands, the herd relies on sight and sound, communicating with distant calls that roll across the plain like thunder. In the forest, sound travels differently, softened by foliage. So elephants depend more on vibration, touch, and scent to remain connected. In drylands, water dictates movement, and those who remember its hidden sources become the keepers of the herd's future. The matriarch, oldest and wisest, leads with knowledge older than any map. Her sense of direction is not instinct alone, it is memory, passed down from her ancestors who walked these same paths before the world had borders. Throughout Africa and Asia, elephant migrations trace invisible highways across entire regions. Researchers following their journeys have discovered that some herds travel hundreds of kilometers each year, returning to the same rivers, clearings, and mineral-rich soils, generation after generation. In Kenya's Tsavo, for example, GPS collars have revealed migrations so precise that individuals still follow routes their ancestors walked decades earlier, even when the landscape has changed beyond recognition. In Namibia, a lone desert elephant once walked over 200 kilometers in a season, moving between ephemeral waterholes across terrain that to her was a map filled with memory. These stories remind us that for elephants, migration is not merely movement, it is an inheritance of survival. But the world around them is shifting. Fields and fences carve through once open land. Roads slice ancient corridors in half. Satellite images show how human expansion has splintered elephant habitats into isolated patches, forcing herds into closer contact with people. A single railway line or sugarcane field can separate families that once roamed freely. Across parts of Asia and Africa, conservationists now speak of landscape fragmentation, a quiet but relentless form of loss. It is not the loss of the elephant itself, but of the freedom it needs to live, as it always has, migrating, remembering, reshaping the land. And yet, even within this shrinking world, the elephants endure. They adapt, learning to cross roads at night, to avoid trains, to seek refuge in reserves or corridors protected by local communities. In Botswana's Okavango Delta, aerial footage captures herds wading through flooded plains, their reflections shimmering like moving sculptures in the water. In India's Western Ghats, families of elephants emerge from mist-covered forests to drink from rivers that flow past ancient temples. These scenes, real, quiet, deeply alive, show that the bond between elephant and environment is not easily broken. Their world is vast yet fragile, timeless yet changing. From open savannas to dense forests, from wetlands to dry deserts, elephants have learned to belong to all of it. And as we follow them through these living landscapes, their story continues to evolve toward the very structure of their being, their immense bodies, their tools of survival, and the remarkable adaptations that allow them to command every environment they enter. The herd moves on, the morning light lengthening across the plain, and as the massive silhouettes stride steadily, we cannot help but confront the sheer scale of their being. To stand beside one is to feel the earth shift beneath a weight that surpasses most of the land mammals alive today. In the case of the African savanna elephant, individuals may reach a shoulder height of nearly 4 meters and weigh more than 6 tons. These are numbers that hint at strength, but only partially evoke the full magnificence of anatomy and movement. Every bone, muscle, and tendon has evolved to carry that mass with grace, and the physics of it demand constant adaptation. Legs designed like pillars, feet spread wide, pads absorbing shock and subtle irregularities in terrain, allowing hours of walking rather than bursts of sprinting. As one young calf ambles along, its legs seeming almost too long for its body, you might notice how it lifts its trunk, tentatively at first, the long nose limb that will become its tool of survival. That trunk, an extraordinary fusion of upper lip and nose, is powered by roughly 100,000 muscles and tendons, enabling movements both monumental and minute. It can uproot a small tree, scoop up water and spray it into the mouth, or pluck a single blade of grass with the precision of a human hand. The tip of the trunk of an African elephant has 2 finger-like projections, allowing a delicate grasp. The Asian elephant, by contrast, has 1, shaped by its different environment. Watching the calf try to bring a leaf to its mouth, you see its awkward waver, the trunk bending this way and that, until finally it clasps the green stem and slowly draws it up. In that moment you glimpse the learning, the adaptation, and the promise of adulthood, for in that trunk resides the genius of this creature. And then there are the tusks, those ivory-white crescents that emerge from the skull and extend outward like silent archers' bows. Technically, they are elongated incisor teeth, continuously growing throughout life. In female and male African elephants, both may carry tusks, whereas among Asian elephants only many males have them, with some females possessing only small tushes. Tusks serve as tools, stripping bark from trees, digging waterholes in dry riverbeds, moving obstacles in their path, and also as weapons and status symbols. Sadly, they have also become appendages of tragedy, for the desire for ivory has transformed a survival tool into a target, driving some populations to the brink. Understanding tusks requires not just admiration, but acknowledgement of the cost they carry. The elephant's skin is as remarkable as the features that define its form. Rough and wrinkled, sometimes more than 2 centimeters thick in places, it serves as both armor and temperature regulator. Beneath the surface lie countless folds and tiny hairs, increasing surface area, enabling heat dissipation, while the creature flaps its ears like great sails in the wind to cool blood flowing through thin vessels beneath the skin. The ear flaps are not mere ornaments, they are vital organs of thermoregulation. In the heat of the midday savanna, the elephant may spray itself with water or mud, coating the skin with a layer that protects from sun and insects, a behavioral adaptation rooted in anatomy. If you listen closely, you feel the unseen world the elephant perceives. Their sensory apparatus is tuned to environments we barely sense. The trunk can carry scent particles to the Jacobson's organ, a gland inside the roof of the mouth, which helps detect chemical cues, from water sources to the scent of a distant herd. Vibrations travel through the ground as low-frequency rumbles, picked up by footpads and bones, allowing elephants to hear movement beyond visual range. Touch, too, is refined. The tip of the trunk, the gentle tap of a tail on a calf, the press of an older female's body against younger, every contact a message. Researchers are now excavating the structure of tusk pulp and nerve fibers to understand just how little pain may be sensed and how these physical subtleties underpin complex behavior. And so the young calf, now steadier on its feet, slips behind the matriarch as she walks toward a watering hole at dusk. The dusk light catches the tusks, the trunk swinging in time with each step, the skin coated with dust and droppings, ears flapping gently. In this moment we begin to see the whole, an animal built for power, endurance, and complex social life, its form and function inseparable from its existence. From this body, shaped by millions of years, we move into the next chapter of story. How that body feeds the land, moves corridors, engineers forests, and faces the threats of a changing world. The herd moves onward beneath the expanding sky, the matriarch steady at the head, and as the light shifts we follow them into the rhythm of life. Vast bodies ripple through grasses and brush as the sun climbs, and it becomes clear that for an elephant, movement is not just travel, it is survival. The land offers, the land demands, and the elephant obeys both. Each dawn, the journey begins again, with an appetite that seems almost insatiable. An adult elephant is said to consume between 150 to nearly 300 kilograms of vegetation each day, a mouthful of forest, grassland, bark and roots that speaks both of size and of necessity. Much of this effort demands time. Studies note that elephants spend up to 16 to 18 hours each day feeding. In this way, the blade of grass becomes as meaningful as the tree, because every bite contributes to the survival of the herd. Their feeding habits do more than nourish, they reshape the wild. As they strip bark, pull down branches, uproot shrubs, and wander great distances carrying seeds in their dung, elephants earn the title of ecosystem engineers. A fallen log, once cleared by an elephant, becomes a passage for smaller mammals. A seed deposited dozens of kilometers from its origin becomes a new sapling that will one day shelter birds and insects. In the savanna, where trees might otherwise encroach on grassland, elephants knock over young woody growth, keeping the open plains alive with grasses that sustain antelopes, zebras, and the predators that track them. This role is as quiet as it is grand. They eat to live, but in so doing they make life possible for countless others. The day proceeds in a steady cadence, feeding, walking, resting, drinking, bathing, repeating. As the sun rises high and the air grows thick with heat, the herd shifts into motion. The matriarch leads the younger females and calves through a ribbon of woodland toward a waterhole known only to her, with memory born of seasons and years. The calves, still training trunks in uncertain arcs, tag behind the older sisters. At the edge of the water, the trunk dips, water sprays, and the dust of dry season plains rises in miniature theatre of survival and relief. In that moment, the herd is bound not only by blood, but by the promise of water and shade. Once the water is reached, the elephant's love for bath and splash becomes clear. They wade, they submerge, they play. The young calf tumbles in shallow water, its trunk spouting a fountain of joy as mud coats its back and flies settle on its ears. Mother's trump and audible rumble ripples across the hush before the scene. Bathing is more than cleansing. It is an act of social bonding, an exchange of comfort, cooling and connection. In these moments, the herd is one living tapestry of interaction. Later, as the sun begins its slow descent, the feeding resumes in earnest. Branches are pulled, bark stripped, grass is harvested by the handful. When the herd moves out of one feeding site, they often head to the next, ensuring that region after region is used and replenished. Owen Sentongsi, where the matriarch's knowledge is essential. She knows where the fresh shoots hide, where the earth cracks to reveal precious minerals, and where the water lies just below the dry riverbed. A single misstep could mean hardship for many, and so survival depends on memory as much as muscle. In one recorded dry season trek across a southern African reserve, an elephant herd traversed nearly 100 kilometers before sunrise, moving through parched terrain toward a spring the matriarch had visited the year before. The calves paused only twice, the younger females monitored the rear, and bulls walked silent and steady in the rear guard. At the water source the relief was palpable. The trunks raised, the herd drank deeply, stamped mud into water, and moved on under the low golden light. Such journeys remain not only remarkable in distance, but in meaning. They are testaments to adaptation, endurance, and the timeless link between creature and landscape. And so the elephants feed the land, even as the land feeds them. Every bite, every step, every splash writes a chapter of ecological symbiosis. The simple act of eating transforms into the grand act of sustaining. From this daily rhythm, we now move deeper into their society, into the communication, emotion, and structure that animate the animal beneath the surface of size and appetite. The herd advances across the high grasses and soft shadows, the matriarch's silhouette steady against the sky. And in that figure one sees far more than a leader. One sees memory incarnate. In the world of the elephant, the oldest and largest female holds the subtle, invisible reins of family life. Through decades she has walked these lands, heard the water's whispers, sensed the first drop of rain, and guided her herd accordingly. Scientific playback experiments show that elephant family groups led by older matriarchs perform better at assessing threats and making decisions compared to groups led by younger females. On every dawn that opens, the matriarch stands as the repository of knowledge, her every pause or movement a signal to her family, who follow without hesitation. Within this network of relationships, bonds run deep. Mothers intertwine their lives with daughters and sisters, calves cling to aunts when danger looms, and grandmothers watch silently as new life emerges. The herd is more than a group, it is a multi-generational tapestry of care and cooperation. Biologists describe how female elephants from several generations live together in tightly knit units, offering unparalleled protection and support for calves. A newborn stands within minutes of birth, guided by a dozen eyes and dozens of trunks, as mothers and sisters cluster, protect, instruct. When the calf succeeds in its first trembling steps, the herd softly echoes celebration in gentle nudges and rumbling hums. Beyond the familial bond, the other side of this society lies with the males, once calves themselves, now entering the realm of independence. As males mature, they gradually leave the matriarch-led herd, choosing either solitary life or loose bachelor groups. These men of the elephant world live by different rules, less bound by the rhythms of the herd, more driven by competition, hormones, and the search for mates. In these bachelor clusters, social bonds loosen but do not vanish. Researchers find that young bulls still engage in play, establish hierarchies, test strength, and learn their place in the wild. The social fabric of the elephant stretches wide, maternal unity on one side, masculine solitude on the other, each necessary for the balance of the species. Communication pulses beneath every movement of the herd. In one silent moment, a distant rumble travels through the earth, vibrations picked up by footpads and bones. In another, a trumpet cuts the air, from low-frequency rumbles undetectable to human ears to tactile touches of trunk and flank. Elephants speak a language of subtlety and strength. The matriarch will often stop, align her body, emit a long rumble, and the family responds in kind, shifting course or preparing to move. In recent research, some African elephants appear even to use individually specific vocalizations, analogous to names, addressing one another in the vast terrain. In a waterhole clearing, one young female lifts her trunk and rumbles softly. Across the pond, an older cousin flicks her ear and answers. These moments carry history, identity, and belonging. Emotion and empathy flow quietly through elephant society. When a newborn emerges from its long gestation, sisters and aunts cluster around, touching, rumbling in a soft welcome. When a cherished elder falls or is lost, the herd gathers, trunk to trunk, sometimes standing in vigil, touching the body, rumbling in sorrow. These are not isolated incidents, but patterns of reaction. Elephants mourn, they console, they remember. Studies show that when matriarchs are lost, often through poaching or old age, the performance of herds suffers. Higher calf mortality, weaker decision-making, lower survival. In one documented case, a herd in Tanzania, led by a 29-year-old matriarch, survived a drought far more successfully than a neighboring herd under younger leadership. Through all of this, the leadership, the communication, the empathy, runs a single thread. Life continues because knowledge endures. The herd's survival depends not only on strength but on the passing of memory, the instinct to protect, the unspoken code of cooperation that transcends generations. From within that living structure, new beginnings emerge. Calves are born, lives restart, and the cycle of growth renews itself beneath the same open sky. The land stirs with the promise of renewal, the herd pausing at the edge of a clearing where shadows lengthen and golden light lingers. Within the matriarch's gaze lies awareness of beginnings and endings, and today this awareness draws the family forward toward the deepest cycle of life. Reproduction, growth, the unbroken chain of generations. In the world of elephants, courtship is neither hurried nor simple. Male elephants enter a state known as must, a period marked by elevated hormones, altered behavior, and a sweeping transformation of purpose. Researchers describe musk as a roving strategy. Mature bulls become more mobile, broadcasting their readiness through scent, posture, and sound, seeking females in estrus with a singular focus. A bull in must may dribble urine. His temporal glands swell and exude a strong scent called temporin, his head held high, ears outstretched, in a slow, deliberate swagger. He moves across the terrain, following low-frequency calls of receptive females that carry for kilometers. In this way, reproduction becomes a drama of endurance, signal and selection, a trial of strength and timing rather than mere chance. When she is ready, a female whose cues of scent and posture declare the moment, the next stage begins. The mating process may last only hours or extend to a few days as bulls guard the female from rivals, asserting their claim. The gestation that follows is among the longest in the animal kingdom. For nearly 2 years, roughly 20 to 22 months, the unborn calf develops inside the womb, growing ears, trunk, tail, and the brain sized for a life of complexity. In those months, the mother travels less, seeks safety in the familiar paths maintained by the herd, and the family remains alert, protective, watchful. Then comes the birth. Often at dawn or under the cover of night, a calf emerges weighing around 100 kilograms and standing about 1 meter tall. The herd closes in, mothers, sisters, aunts all surrounding the newborn. In a moment of gentle urgency, the calf wobbles to its feet, guided by trunks and nudges, encouraged by soft rumbles. Some minutes later, it takes its first uncertain steps, the ground trembling beneath its small feet, before drawing its first breath of freedom. In the weeks that follow, a dance of learning begins. The calf mimics its mother's trunk movements, imitating the pull of bark, the flick of ears, the swish of tail. Play becomes its classroom. It chases dust clouds, tests water with its trunk, pushes small branches aside as though they were mighty trees. Older siblings and aunts allow it the space to try, fall, rise again. Studies show that calves may continue to nurse for 2 to 3 years or more, while slowly adding vegetation to their diet and mastering the skills of survival. As the years advance, the calf enters youth, its tusks beginning to emerge, its stride lengthening, its questions growing bolder. Lifetime follows life. Youth gives way to maturity. Calves become adolescents, then adults carrying their own stories. Female elephants may reproduce well into their 40s or beyond, while some individuals live for up to 70 years or more under optimal conditions. Each stage is shaped by the years of feeding, walking, bonding, and survival that came before. The growth from playful youngster to wise elder mirrors the land itself, rich with scars, tempered by change, hopeful for continuity. In the soft hush of evening, the herd stands together. The newborn calf nestled beside its mother, the matriarch silent in her vigilance. One generation follows another, the chain unbroken, the promise of tomorrow quietly spoken in rustling leaves and shallow breath. With this new life comes purpose renewed for the herd, and for us, the unfolding of their story continues as we move into how these giants shape the world around them. Their role as architects of wilderness and guardians of habitat. An elephant pauses and pushes aside a young acacia sapling with its tusk. The tree falls, the trunk thuds into the earth, and a sudden clearing opens in the thinning forest. That subtle fracture in the canopy becomes refuge for sunlight-loving grasses, new saplings and creatures that thrive in open space. In that act of simple transformation lies the profound truth of the elephant's role. These giants are not only shaped by their environment, they shape it in return. Across the vast landscapes of Africa and Asia, elephants act as what ecologists call ecosystem engineers. Their movements, feeding, and even their footprints create trails for smaller animals, mud-wallowing pits that become watering holes, and dead wood that shelters insects and birds alike. One researcher wrote of wandering through bamboo forest on Mount Kenya and suddenly discovering a highway carved by elephants, arching corridors of green made navigable only because of their passage. When an elephant pushes through a thicket, the branches crack and the foliage parts. That act allows light to reach the forest floor, seeds to sprout, and new life to begin. In floodplains and dry riverbeds, elephants become the hidden engineers of water. During droughts, they use tusks and trunks to dig deep into the cracked earth, uncovering water that has slept unseen. These small excavations form microponds that give life to countless other species, antelopes, birds, even insects that drink from the muddy rims. In the arid regions of southern Africa, herds have been followed as they carved out long-lasting watering holes, wells created by tusk and trunk that persist long after the elephants have moved on. It is as though the land registers their passage, remains changed by the weight of their presence. Seed dispersal is another chapter of the elephant's legacy, a legacy written in dung. When forest elephants feed on fruits, their digestive systems process and expel thousands of seeds each day. Many of these seeds would never germinate without passing through an elephant's gut. The scarification, travel, and eventual deposition in nutrient-rich dung give them their best chance. In one study of African forest elephants, researchers found an average of 346 large seeds per hectare dispersed daily. Some seeds travel tens of kilometers before being dropped, carried inside elephants as they roam, and the trees that grow may become giants themselves, deeply rooted, carbon-rich, and forming the canopy of tomorrow's forest. Without elephants, many of these forests would collapse into homogeneity. Fewer species, fewer habitats, fewer possibilities for life to flourish. Picture a drought-scarred plain, grasses brown, waterholes barely wet, life hanging by fragile threads. Then the herd arrives. Dust swirling, the matriarch pausing at the dry riverbed, sensing the underground flow. She drives her tusk into the cracked bank. Looseness beneath shifts, water seeps, and soon the first trickle becomes a pool. Smaller mammals appear, birds join, and the ecosystem breathes again. That single moment captures the elephant's power as a savior of sanctuary. In another realm, the forest bends quietly to their will. When a forest elephant strips bark from a large tree or uproots a dead trunk, that dead wood becomes habitat for beetles, ants, frogs, and small mammals. One biologist noted how lizards preferred the broken-off branches of elephant-damaged trees, using the crevices for hiding and hunting. The effects ripple outward. An elephant's meal becomes a micro-ecosystem for many others. Even the humble footprint matters. Depressions made by massive feet may hold water during rains. Tadpoles hatch in these footprints. Frogs call at night in their pools, and the cycle continues. In this way, the land is patterned by elephants, shaped by their gait, feeding and movement through time. Yet all this engineering comes with a responsibility. As their numbers fall, so too does the complexity of the ecosystems they support. Studies show that without elephants, many biodiverse forests become more uniform. Fewer tree species, less structural diversity, and lower carbon storage capacity. The elephant's presence is not just a symbol of wildness, it is a vital component of life that underpins thriving habitats. From this architecture of wilderness, we now move into the next layer of the story. The challenges these giants face, the threats that jeopardize their role, and the efforts underway to protect not only the elephant, but the environments they engineer. The morning breeze stirs through the grasses, carrying both promise and uncertainty. As the herd advances, the footprints of past journeys fade into lands transformed by human hands and shifting climates. Once open corridors now fade under farms, fences, and roads that slice through ancient migration routes. The elephant's path is no longer just shaped by water and vegetation. It is constrained by human expansion. Across Africa and Asia, farmers wake to find broken fences and trampled crops. Elephants drawn toward rich fields of maize or sugarcane, indirectly invited by the ease of nutrients and distance saved. This phenomenon, known as human-elephant conflict, describes the growing peril when elephants enter agricultural land, destroy property, or unintentionally injure people. In regions such as the fringes of protected areas, elephants inadvertently become raiders, and the cost is paid by both rural communities and the species itself. Simultaneously, the illegal trade in ivory has hunted the elephant's existence with relentless determination. For centuries, tusks, once used to dig, strip bark, and shape landscapes, have been coveted for art, status, and profit. In the mid-20th century, tens of thousands of elephants were killed annually for their ivory, leaving populations severely depleted. Poaching remains one of the gravest threats. Bulls with large tusks are targeted, skewing sex ratios and weakening social structures. Across the spectrum of challenges, survival is no longer only about waterholes and grasses. It is about evading human greed and learning to persist in a world where the rules have changed. Climate change adds yet another layer of hardship. As rainfall patterns shift, droughts lengthen, vegetation withers, and once reliable water sources vanish, elephants must stretch further and walk longer in search of sustenance. In regions of Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Zambia, mass elephant deaths have been attributed to prolonged drought, linked with El Niño conditions and rising temperatures. The altered landscapes push herds into adjacent farmland or into human-populated zones, escalating conflict yet again. Research shows that areas previously comfortable for elephants may become inhospitable within decades, forcing new migratory routes, exposing isolated populations, and increasing vulnerability. The immense bodies of elephants, designed for endurance, are now battling a world that is trading predictability for change. And the toll is not just physical, it is psychological and emotional. When a matriarch falls to poaching or a corridor is lost, her memory vanishes with her, and the herd loses its guidance. Orphaned calves may struggle to integrate, loners wander, social structures collapse. In one documented rescue case, a formerly persecuted herd in Central Africa gradually relearned the rhythms of foraging, socializing and trusting, a demonstration of resilience yet also of fragility. Though not safe from scars, they adapted with careful care and time. These are not scenes of simple triumph. These are stories of survival with wounds. The elephant remembers not only watering holes and forest paths, but trauma, loss, and dislocation. While human influence, poaching, and climate often appear as separate threats, they are entwined. Farms and fences soften the land's edges. Elephant memory drives herds into vulnerable zones. Drought pushes them to risky routes. Poachers exploit the moment. A 2025 study modeling future conflict risk predicts that as agriculture expands and climate shifts, human-elephant conflict will increase and expand into zones previously untouched. In some communities, farmers now guard fields at night, build chill fence barriers, install early warning systems, and attempt to coexist. Yet the elephant's survival depends on more than human goodwill. It depends on space, freedom, connection to the land. At the edge of a dried-up riverbed, the herd pauses. The matriarch listens for a distant rumble of water, trunk raised to wind-scented hints of moisture. Around her calves cluster, humid dust swirling under the midday sun. The moment mirrors a tragedy of our era. Water and vegetation no longer flow as they did, and the land bears the imprint of too many footsteps, sterile with strain. Yet even in this moment, the herd stirs, the work of survival pressing forward. Behind them lie the green forests and open plains they once roamed freely. Ahead lies a question. Can the giant of the wild adapt, endure, thrive in a world that is reshaping beneath her feet? In the ancient world, the majestic elephant walked beside humanity, sometimes honored as sacred, sometimes harnessed for war, always entwined with our story. Across the Indian subcontinent, the elephant is far more than an animal. It is a symbol, a deity, a living embodiment of strength and wisdom. In Hindu traditions, one finds the god Airavata, a mighty white elephant who carries the thunder god, Indra, and stands at the axis of the heavens. In temples across India, depictions of the goddess Lakshmi show her flanked by elephants pouring water, symbols of fertility, prosperity, and divine guardianship. Meanwhile, in Africa's oral traditions, elephants represent wisdom, loyalty, and ancestral power, creatures whose memory and stance mirror the values of human society. Long before the phrase human-elephant relationship became common, these animals marched into historic battles. Empires deployed war elephants to break enemy lines, shatter cavalry formations, and rain terror on opponents. The armies of India, Carthage, and later Rome used these immense beasts as living war machines, sinew, tusk, and fear combined. In South Asia, elephants became symbols of royalty and power. Kings rode atop them in processions, inscribed their names on tusks, made them parade creatures of spectacle and awe. Yet the flip side of this legacy is complex. Captivity, performance, and spectacle brought the elephant into arenas of display rather than wild freedom. For millennia, these animals were tamed, trained, and led by humans in tasks of logging, tourism, ritual, and battle. Records of captive elephants stretch back more than 3,000 years. In places like the state of Kerala in India, elephants remain core to temple festivals, adorned with gilded caparisons and paraded before thousands, even as questions arise about their welfare and right to thrive. In recent decades, the ethical lens has sharpened. People increasingly ask, what does it mean to keep an elephant in captivity? To display, ride, or show it for entertainment? Sanctuaries and welfare-led ecotourism are becoming part of a new paradigm. Far from the noisy crowds and chains of old, new programs emphasize space, social bonds, and natural behavior. In Nepal, an article documented elephants freed from chaining, their movements and behaviors gradually returning to a more natural rhythm. One story stands especially vivid. A female called Pupi, after more than 3 decades in an Argentine zoo, was transferred to a sanctuary in Brazil, where she began rediscovering freedom, social connection, and the gentle rhythms of elephant life. Here, beneath the gentle sway of tail and trunk, lies a deeper truth. Our lives and theirs are bound. Elephants carry memory of migrations, of forests, of waterholes, and we carry memory of them in art, in religion, in myth. Their survival is entwined with ours. Conservation, respect, and coexistence are not just about protecting a species, but honoring a shared history. In the frames of tomorrow, as we shift our gaze from symbolism and tradition toward redemption and renewal, the journey continues toward how these giants can be protected, restored, and how we might be their allies. The herd moves beyond the open plains, their footprints stretching into lands shaped by both wildness and will. A shifting frontier where human intent and elephant destiny meet. In this terrain of possibility, efforts are underway that reach far beyond observation. Here, conservation becomes commitment, innovation becomes action, and hope begins to take tangible form. Across Africa and Asia, conservation organizations and governments are mobilizing unprecedented resources to protect the elephant. The African Wildlife Foundation, AWFE for example, has for decades supported anti-poaching patrols, human-elephant coexistence programs, and protection of critical habitats. One major strategy has been the creation of wildlife corridors, those unseen highways of the wild that allow elephants to move freely between key zones. The Save the Elephants organization has teamed with the Wise Academy for Nature in northern Kenya to secure and legalize several of these corridors. By mapping decades of radio tracking data and collaborating with local communities, they have begun to protect routes once threatened by infrastructure and urban sprawl. Technology has stepped into this domain with remarkable force. Rangers equipped with GPS tracking collars monitor herds in real time. Drones scan vast landscapes, fire thermal imaging where interests conflict. Data flowing from sensors and satellites feeds into decision-making and land use planning. In Tanzania's Selous Game Reserve region, a roadmap to zero poaching includes drone surveillance, collaring of elephants, and community patrols, all combined to provide early warning and rapid response. One pilot project in Tanzania's human-elephant conflict zones demonstrated how unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, could escort elephants away from farmlands, reducing crop damage and retaliatory killings. These tools don't replace the human presence in conservation, they amplify it, allowing rangers and community members to act with better information, faster reaction, and greater precision. Community engagement and education are woven into this story as well. When local people become protectors rather than adversaries, the landscape shifts. Workshops train farmers in crop raiding deterrence. Schools teach children the value of elephants beyond ivory or spectacle. Villages share in tourism revenues tied not to spectacle, but to stable, thriving herds. The narrative around elephants changes, from trophies and conflict to guardianship and coexistence. Outreach programs in Kenya, funded by AWF, now count thousands of farmers trained in mitigation techniques such as chili fences and early warning systems for elephant approaches. Storytelling itself becomes a tool. Films, documentaries, social media campaigns, and education packs alter perceptions, reminding us that when we protect elephants, we protect elegant, functioning ecosystems and shared futures. And there are victories. Quiet but meaningful. In parts of East Africa, elephant populations once in steep decline are stabilizing or even rising where corridors, patrols and community programs align. For instance, in the Savo-Mukamazi landscape, cross-border patrols and community-based water pan restoration work yield fewer poaching incidents and better herd survival. These outcomes illustrate that conservation is not merely a lost cause or ideal, it can be effective. The elephant's future is not guaranteed, but it is being shaped by human hands in positive ways. As the afternoon sun casts long shadows across their path, the herd presses on, guided by instinct and memory, yet now flanked by human effort, technology, and collaboration. The story of the elephant is no longer just one of legacy, it becomes one of partnership. From corridors carved in dust to drones hovering overhead, from farmers learning coexistence to calves rousing beneath wide skies. The next chapter is actively being written. The question is no longer solely whether the elephants will survive, but how they and we will live together. Night descends over the open plains, slow and deliberate, as if the earth itself exhales. The heat of the day fades, and a breeze stirs through the grass, carrying the scent of dust and water. The herd gathers in silence beneath an infinite sky. Their silhouettes soften in the silver light of the moon, massive, ancient, yet serene. Calves nestle close to their mothers, their breath deep and even. Somewhere nearby, a bull shifts his weight and rumbles low, the sound rolling like distant thunder through the quiet. Around them the savanna whispers, the hum of crickets, the far cry of a nightjar, the rustle of leaves stirred by a memory of wind. In this stillness, it becomes clear that these creatures embody more than survival. They are living symbols of balance, patience, and wisdom. Across cultures and centuries, the elephant has carried meaning larger than its form. In Asia, it represents strength guided by calm. In Africa, it is the elder spirit of the wild, an emblem of continuity and kinship with the land. In every trunk raised toward the stars, in every slow step through grass and shadow, one can sense a philosophy older than words, that life, to endure, must remain in harmony with what surrounds it. The matriarch lowers her trunk and touches the ground gently. To her, the night holds no fear. The constellations above are familiar, the path beneath her feet remembered through generations. Scientists tell us that elephants possess extraordinary special memory, that a matriarch can recall a waterhole visited decades earlier, or the scent of rain that once followed a certain wind. But their memory runs deeper than geography. It carries emotion, connection, and empathy. They grieve their dead, celebrate their young, and wait for those who wander too long. Each moment of touch, of sound, of shared movement binds them to one another in ways that echo the bonds within our own hearts. They remember, they feel, they belong. The truth of those words humbles anyone who has watched a herd move in unison or heard their rumbles roll beneath the earth. To understand elephants is to be reminded of what humanity risks forgetting, that intelligence and emotion are not ours alone, that gentleness is a strength, not a weakness, that harmony with the world is the only lasting form of power. The stars drift slowly westward, and the land seems to breathe in rhythm with the herd. One by one, the elephants lower themselves to rest, folding their legs beneath them, eyelids heavy, tusks gleaming faintly in starlight. The matriarch stands watch for a moment longer, her gaze lifted toward the horizon, as though she listens for voices older than time itself. Somewhere beyond the darkness, the first signs of dawn wait, the promise of another day, another journey, another chance for the world to listen. The night remains still, vast, eternal. The herd sleeps, and in the quiet we are left with a deep sense of gratitude for their presence, their endurance, their grace. The story of the elephant continues, written not only in dust and footprints, but in the hearts of those who have truly seen them beneath the silent stars.